So there is a socio-political wave that is sweeping the nation right now. I mean, conservatives have made themselves known loudly. We got sick of the woke, sick of the lamestream media, sick of being told that right is wrong and wrong is right. Sick of watching as our national interests, our economy, our security, our commerce, all of it was gerrymandered for no other reason than to try and reshape America into some bastion of progressive, liberal, anything-goes activity. But the voters and the public at large, and the new version of the media that includes things like this podcast, it has all created what I would call a new mandate, a new opportunity, if you will, to bring back old truths and the window of opportunity that has been created to put conservative principles back into place and right the ship of state. Well, it's still something that so many so-called conservatives are actually still shying away from. And you have to look at it and go, guys, you've got a window of opportunity here that can close, and you capitalize on this while you can. So let me dive into some of that, because there are some background issues related to leadership that I think have to be discussed. A while back, I was struggling with a business venture, and I confided in somebody that I respect that it was creating some doubt, that for the first time in my life, I was actually losing sleep over it. I mean, I slept like a baby in Baghdad, but this business thing that I was in was wearing me out. And I told that to the person that I was speaking with. I'll never forget this. He looked at me and he said something that I hope I never forget. He said, in fact, I'll be honest with you, I say this to myself every day now before I get out of bed. I mean, like literally every morning before I get out of bed, I say what he told me that I needed to be considering. He said, you need to take authority over that which God has placed you in. Take authority over that which God has placed you in. Think about that phrase. You need to take authority over that which God has placed you in. What does that even mean? Well, several things really. I mean, it means having an assurance of your position. It means having a deep-rooted confidence in your capabilities. It means having an unwillingness to lose, not just a plan to win, but an actual unwillingness to lose. That even when you're tired, you take note that you've been entrusted with something, and that details matter, and that your personal comforts are actually secondary to being the one in whom God has placed some measure of authority. It's a major thing. It doesn't mean you don't take care of yourself and rest when you need to. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is you become more selfless and more focused on the mission, the thing that God has placed you in, the thing that He's given you authority over. Now, I mean, anyone can be a leader. You can be elected, you can be appointed, you can be promoted, you can be assigned to a leadership position, but very few people actually walk in their authority. So I had another conversation with a well-known politician a while back. It was an off-the-record discussion, so I won't say who or what it was about. If I said the person's name, it'd be familiar, but I won't do that. But I will say this, the person called me to make sure that I had heard from them that certain things being said about them just aren't true. Well, nothing I said, mind you, but just stuff that was out there in the public arena. Okay, I understand that position. I understand firsthand what it means to have things said about you that you don't believe have any merit, or that they were said unfairly or out of context, or that were just plain old lies. So we talked for a minute. I encouraged this person to come on my radio show, talk it through out loud if they felt like they needed to. But then I told this politician something that I was told myself back during one of my own campaigns. That there's an old rule that if you spend time chasing down everything other people say about you, that all you're doing at that point is dancing to their tune. Well, that's a natural inclination. I'm taking these things and putting them in order for you here to think about walking in your authority. Sometimes we want to set the record straight. We don't want them to get away with that. Sometimes, to be honest, the record does in fact have to be set straight, but especially if it's impacting your life or your family or your business. But at some point, you have to also have the confidence of your position, the intrinsic value of knowing that upon which you stand, the ability to face your accusers on the battlefield of your own choosing. What I'm talking about, again, is walking in your authority. Walk in the authority that God has placed you in. Walk and take authority over that which He has placed you in. Now, some would call that confidence or courage. I coined a phrase a couple of years ago. I call it bulletproof influence. Write it down. You heard it here first. One of my new favorite phrases. I need to put it on a t-shirt, I guess. I call it bulletproof influence. I'm going to say that bulletproof influence is the ability to speak to an issue or act upon a position or direct other people from that well-earned position of being so right that it's more than a thought, it's a conviction. Bulletproof influence is a conviction matched by a deep and intentional understanding of the why and the conviction that it's not just the why, but the what. I mean, you've studied it, you're confident in your position, you're willing to stand on it, and then it goes one step further. Bulletproof influence, I would say, can only happen if you consider who it is you're also hoping to influence and how best to convey your convictions. And the only way, y'all, the only way to have bulletproof influence is to actually walk in your authority. Now, I've known a lot of people who were well-intentioned, they had strong beliefs, and they had no ability to message those beliefs at all. I mean, like, they were right, but they'd never thought about how to convey their rightness, if you know what I'm saying. They never took the extra time to consider how best to express it in a way that others could hear it. And that's important. The Apostle Paul, he said, I've become all things to all people that I might all the more win some. He wasn't saying he was going to be a chameleon and change his opinions to fit the winds of culture. No, he wasn't. What he was saying was, I have a conviction. I have a purpose. I have a calling. And God has placed an authority in me. And Paul was saying, I've got to tailor, though, my presentation to the people that I'm talking to, or they won't understand it. Speak their language, so to speak. Bulletproof influence, it goes way beyond your own convictions. It comes directly from your own level of confidence, yes. How much do you believe in yourself? But it also, how much of what you believe is based on your own life experiences. And then keep in mind, your personal story, your experiences, your testimony, if you will, that's also something no one can ever deny you of. You were there, you saw it, you felt it, you overcame it, you learned about it the hard way, and now you're willing to share it with others. You got the t-shirt and you have the scars to prove it. Bulletproof influence, it takes all these things about personal conviction, well-studied thoughts, intentional preparation to provide a message, and then the life of the person who's carrying the conviction. And y'all, that's a big deal. And there are so few people who get that. Leadership, the ability to walk in the authority over those things that God has placed you in, that bulletproof influence, they come from all those things. How deep does your conviction run on the issue? How much have you studied it and become a student of that thing that you're involved with? How much time do you spend preparing so that when the day comes that you can share the message of what it is you care about or lead on, that you can actually do it in a way that makes sense? And then the life of the person who's carrying the conviction. Yeah, using your own story. No one can take your story away from you. So bulletproof influence also comes from what I would call a selfless position. It's not about you. It's not about what you can get. It's not about anything that I would have to say would be like being a charlatan, somebody who is going to gain from this, and that's why I'm using my influence. That's not what it's about. People can smell a faker a mile away. Real influence with real people comes when they realize that they are cared about in the process and that your position is something that is to their own benefit as much as it is to yours. Bulletproof influence is also something, like I said, that is absolutely earned. I mean, it's possible to walk into a leadership position cold, right? Maybe you got a promotion and you just walked into the office, or you moved into a new position, or you took a new job. Maybe your influence is supposed to be automatic because of your title. But generally speaking, real influence, bulletproof influence is earned. You've spent time, you've developed relationships, you've established yourself on the position of the topic, and the audience is already looking to see what you would say. And no amount of negative naysaying or campaign hit pieces can rock you. You're bulletproof. We saw that, I'll be honest with you, we saw that during Trump's campaign. They did the best they could to slander his name. Think about it. They did everything they could to slander him and his actual character. They tried to destroy his businesses. They tried to convict him of crimes. They convicted him from a variety of different angles. You have the whole lawfare thing going on. You've got any number of states, Maine and I think Colorado come to mind, where the Secretary of State in a partisan manner chose to try and take him off the ballot altogether and deny him ballot access. And yet every single time they did something like that, his polling numbers went up. Why is that? Because in my opinion, he had bulletproof influence. He had earned the right with the people who cared about his positions to lead on those positions, and he was walking in his authority. And the left was apoplectic because they couldn't do anything to rock it. Then there's the whole thing about walking in the authority that God's given you, right? Taking authority over things. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that you're belligerent. It doesn't mean you're putting somebody under your thumb. It means that you know that God has placed in you something that you're confident about and you're supposed to do. It's your mission. It's your calling. And you're not going to leave it alone. You're going to do it. And there's going to be times when it's in the details and you're going to be in the weeds and you're going to be working late, and that's good. Other times when you're empowering other people and telling them what they can do and do better so that they can help you with the process. I'm just telling you, man, you don't find people with bulletproof influence very often. Let me tell you a story about somebody who was a special friend and a mentor to me when he was still alive. Former U.S. Congressman Jim Martin from Gadsden, Alabama. He passed away at the age of 99 just a few years ago. He was a World War II veteran. He was a solid businessman. He was a U.S. Congressman. He spent years in state government. He was a Republican way before it was cool to be a Republican down south. He came to our Kiwanis Club one day, and he asked if he could have a moment to speak. Well, I'll be honest with you, when Jim Martin asked to speak, it's pretty unlikely that anyone's going to resist that. He had already earned the right with us. If Jim Martin asked to speak, the room would sit down and wait to hear what he had to say. Well, he stood up that day, and you could see the inner conviction about what he was about to say. I mean, it seized up in him like a fire. He was nearly 90 years old at the time, but he looked in that moment like he was 40 years younger. Jim went on to describe the fact that he had just heard the night before that the president of Iran had made statements denying that the Jewish Holocaust had ever occurred. Denied it outright, saying that millions of Jews were exterminated and Hitler's grand plan was a lie. Well, you see, my friend Jim Martin was actually the very first U.S. officer in World War II to come across one of the Nazi death camps. He saw it, he felt it, he smelled it, and it stayed with him all of his days. Nobody could ever shake him off of what he knew. He knew how to tell it too. Jim was an orator. He did not have any trouble putting to words how he felt about things. And if any one of us had a question, which we didn't, those questions were dispelled by his bulletproof influence. With us, with the topic, with the whole presentation, he was unshakable in what he knew and believed. He had bulletproof influence. Now, Jim Martin was far more extraordinary than most of us will ever be, but it doesn't matter. What I'm saying right now applies to each one of us. We all have our spheres. We have our family. We have our Sunday school. We have our office group. A few people or vast multitudes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're really in charge of anybody. If you've got that one thing that God has placed you in, just be the one person who's in it that does the best you can do. Do you think of yourself as being in there having bulletproof influence? And watch the politicians, because to me, those are the people that so often forget what it means to walk in their authority. When the negative ads start flying, are they always retaliating? Do they get angry and offended? Are they able to shake it off and walk in the courage of their convictions? Are they working with bulletproof influence? In similar fashion, do this. Watch and see if the public figure can't stand the public eye. Watch and see if they avoid interviews. Watch and see if they don't take questions. Watch and see if they only respond through like well-orchestrated press releases and read from teleprompters. The politician who acts like that, well, they lack the courage of their convictions. They're scared to get out front. They run the risk of being wrong. We don't want somebody thinking I'm wrong. They lack bulletproof influence. You see, real leadership, even real elected leadership, has to act like it's bulletproof. All right, let's bring it home for a minute. Let's talk about elected officials and bulletproof influence, but let's bring it right back here to the home level. I mean, it's easy to talk about D.C. All the news of the day seems to, for some reason, center most often on what is happening in our nation's capital, but what about what's happening in our state capitals? Are we seeing leaders at the state level acting with bulletproof influence? Are we seeing them lead from positions of authority? Have they seized the opportunities they've been given? Because remember what I said at the beginning. The conservative movement has just now made vast changes to the socio-political landscape in literally the last few months. Are our state leaders going to act like they care? Are they going to read the room? Will they walk in their authority and recognize the mandate they've been given? Will they walk like they're bulletproof? Or are they going to squander the moment in feckless squabbles and useless ventures? Because here's the other thing. Somebody who has bulletproof influence, they know that there are times when they have to seize the momentum. They know that part of walking in the authority over that which God has placed them in means recognizing the moments and grabbing hold, grabbing the opportunities when they arise, knowing that they could pass by if they're not capitalized on. And yeah, I'm telling you, some of the worst offenders for ignoring the momentum and ignoring the opportunities are elected officials, because they get so caught up in protecting their office. They get so caught up in who gave money to their campaigns. They forget to walk in their authority. They forget to find those moments and walk with bulletproof influence. And the men and women in state offices are some of the worst at forgetting that they have a huge opportunity in front of them. Because what happens on the national level, if it's national, it can be state as well. And granted, every state has its own flavor, its own politics. I get that. I know that. But the truth is, right now, any red state could be seizing on what I call the red wave momentum at the national level and walking in the authority that God has placed them in. When they approach their jobs, they have to know their authority. They have to also seize the momentum. And here's the thing. This is part of, in my opinion, this is part of leadership, is how do you pray? How do you pray about these things? Because yes, there are times when I, rightfully so, have to pray, Lord, what would I do here? Lord, why should I do this? But there are times when I can recognize the momentum of the place where my calling is vested, and I can look at it and I can say, Lord, why would I not? I need you to shut some doors, God, because right now it looks like I need to be doing this. Lord, why would I not? So let's talk about that from the state level for a minute, because to me, that's the easiest to see. We can talk about Congress and the U.S. Senate, but for most of us, those feel kind of removed. But a lot of us don't even realize to the extent that our state capitals wind up having more impact on our day-to-day life than anything. You've got state legislators that probably literally live in your hometown, eat in the same restaurants, go to the same Sunday schools. I mean, they're all around you. And then they go to Montgomery and make laws. So yeah, it's that time of year right now, that season in which most states, when members of those respective state legislative branches, they gather up for the annual regular session. Florida, right now, as I record this, is already in a special session on illegal immigration. Tennessee, to my north, is in a special session on school choice. Alabama goes into regular session this week. Laws are going to be passed, taxes raised, lowered, or ignored. Budgets debated, hopefully balanced. A myriad of things will come before them on the machinations of state government in the next few months. And these state legislatures, they are incredibly important. Look, I know firsthand the impact that a well-run state legislature can have. I served in the Alabama State Senate myself. When I was elected and sent to the state capitol, I became more keenly aware how much each state house and Senate body can accomplish if they set their minds to it, or for that matter, how much they can screw up. So like I said before, it's easy to become hyper-focused on Congress or the workings of the U.S. Senate, but have you ever really paid real attention to the folks who have been given authority to decide things about your state and local tax laws, education funding, Medicaid, criminal penalties, prison funding, banning transgender treatments on minors, all of it? All of that and more is decided every year by folks who live and work in our hometowns and then drive periodically to the state capitol to pass laws. They're good folks, very often, but there's too many of them, too many of them, that don't walk in their authority. So let's talk about that. You ever been in one of those no-lose situations I mentioned a moment ago about praying, why would I not? That moment when it's like a no-lose. Like, we've all seen no-win situations, but sometimes the stars align and you find yourself looking at your personal situation and thinking, why would I not? If I am walking in my authority, if I believe that I have bulletproof influence in the place where I am, if I'm taking authority over that which God has placed me in, and I see the momentum shift like it is right now, and there's a moment in time where I have to grab hold of it, you have to ask yourself, Lord, why would I not? When all the facts, all the principles, all the gifts and talents seem to align with His word and His will, there can come that moment when we step into our authority and we act. And the biggest decisions can actually become the easiest. The facts and circumstances are lined up in such a way that you can't find any reason why you would lose. Everything to gain. The question is, will you act? Like, here's some examples in my life. I asked Charlene to marry me 39 years ago. It was a no-brainer. I had no money, no job. I was still in school, but I knew the upside. I wanted to be married to her for the rest of my life. Why would I not? I went to Army Ranger School. I had no advance notice. A slot opened up. I had 6 days notice to go. It was the only shot I was ever going to get. Why would I not? When I ran for the state senate, started my own law firm, or kicked off my radio show, which has now grown into a media company, I reviewed each opportunity, prayed it through with my wife, and came back to, why would I not? Yeah, each of those no-lose situations, they involved risk and effort, certainly. Each of those decisions and others have been like super rewarding, more than I could have ever asked or imagined. But they all came down to, why would I not? Part of bulletproof influence is knowing that all things have aligned for a purpose and you're in it. And you have to walk in your authority. And why would you not? So yeah, go back to the state legislatures, because it's so easy to look at them and see things right now. For instance, the elected leaders of our states, they need to think along the same lines. As these state legislatures convene, they need to know they've been given a golden opportunity. They're in the middle, like I said a moment ago, of one of the most dynamic conservative movements in modern history, a time in which public sentiment has swung decidedly in favor of conservative values, conservative principles, conservative politicians. That recent election cycle, it was not just a red wave, y'all, it was a tsunami. Every state in the Southeast has a Republican supermajority in their state house. Notably, Alabama, Tennessee, and Florida Republicans have such strength in their numbers, they literally control their own destiny. But will they? Any state Republican supermajority could act right now in a decisive and deliberate manner to enact the things they say they stand for, the things they campaigned on, the things they talk about, when they do their media appearances and issue their press releases and go out on social media. But will they really do it? And you have to ask right now, if you're going to walk in your authority, if you think you have bulletproof influence, and you're looking at the conservative mandate you've been given, hey, state legislatures, why would you not? I can look south right now in Florida, the Republican majority. They're squabbling among themselves over Governor DeSantis' call for state-level illegal immigration laws. I mean, the bill finally passed, was arguably watered down. It went so far as to even strip the governor of Florida, who is supposed to control state law enforcement. It strips the governor of Florida of his immigration enforcement powers, transfers him to Florida's Secretary of Agriculture. What? The governor may well veto the legislation. Republicans in Florida, they can pass whatever they want to pass right now. State and national sentiment is in their favor. Immigration reform from the Florida Capitol, why would they not? I don't think some of them are walking in their authority, to be honest. In Tennessee, Governor Bill Lee, he called a state House and Senate into special session to enact major school choice legislation. The Education Freedom Act. Tennessee parents, they deserve the ability to determine what's best for their child's educational needs without being bound to a zip code or a bureaucracy. President Trump's even signaled overwhelming support for Tennessee's Education Freedom Act, having previously labeled school choice as the civil rights issue of all time. Tennessee Republicans, they fought the usual fights even among themselves, but they did get it done. They're bringing school choice to Tennessee. I think they're walking in their authority on that one. Why would they not? Everything's in their favor. Alabama's House and Senate goes into annual regular session on February 4th. Speculation abounds whether the rarefied air in the State House is going to be consumed with gambling once again. In 2024, last year, easy layup bills like the What is a Woman Act languished. A simple bill to activate porn filters to protect children died on the vine. Backroom debates going on right now whether Alabama's going to even address illegal immigration at the state level this year. I mean, have they read the room? Do they see the national mandate for a restoration of values? Are they aware of the strength of their position? Are they able to walk in their authority? Do they not recognize that if they will step up to it, they'll have bulletproof influence? Right now, the wind is at their back. It's everything they could ask for. Lower your taxes? Done. Protect children? Done. Streamline government? Done. Illegal immigration laws at the state level? Done. But they got to look at the times. They got to realize there may never be another moment like this one for conservatives to act, to actually walk in the authority they've been granted. And I know I've been saying that over and over again. And that is the purpose of this podcast today, is to encourage you and to give examples of why. That no matter where you are, you need to know that if you're walking in the authority over that which God has placed you in, you can achieve success. Those state legislatures, the ones who are Republican supermajorities, the public voted for them. The public would watch them passing good laws with conservative values right now, with the wind at their backs, like I said, and would see that they care. Would see that when the public cried out, their legislatures at the hometown level actually listened. Do something meaningful is what I would say. Be conservative warriors. It's a no-lose situation. Why would they not? So, yeah, a new mandate, a new opportunity to bring back old truths, the window of opportunity that's been created to put conservative principles back into place and right the ship of state. It's bulletproof influence. It's the ability to speak to an issue or act upon a position or direct other people from a well-earned position of being so right that it's more than a thought, it's a conviction. Bulletproof influence is a conviction. It's matched by a deep and intentional understanding, too, of the why of the conviction, not just the what. You've studied it, you're confident, you're willing to stand on it, and then it goes one step further. Bulletproof influence can only happen if you consider who it is you're hoping to influence and how best to convey it. In other words, have you prepared the ability to message your points? And then the only way to have that authority, that bulletproof influence, is to walk in that authority. Getting up and moving forward. And a part of walking in the authority is recognizing that when God opens opportunities, you may have to get down to the point that you pray, Lord, why would I not? So yeah, I'm praying that local, state, and federal leaders, all of them, will see this time that we're in and take authority over that which God has placed them in. And each one of you would feel the same way. That you would know that you know that you know if there's a thing that you have got as your calling, that bulletproof influence is so worth it. That's my philosophy.